This is the Hot Metal Brand Podcast. I'm your host, Martin Sully, founder of Snapper Studio, a brand strategy and visual design studio in the heart of Newcastle, Australia. And I'm on a mission to help you gain clarity in your brand and confidence in what you're selling. From thoughtful, empowering brand strategies to defining powerful visual stories, I'll arm you with bite-sized branding tools to help you grow your brand and leave your own unique mark. In the last 5 episodes, I've harped on about brand foundations, intentionally aligning your values, repelling and attracting your customers, and zagging. It's all led to this episode as we reach the latter stages of my brand strategy framework. Pleasing your customers and delivering on your promises is what we're going to talk all about today. And one thing that rings true is the old adage of actions speak louder than words. So just kind of, bear that in mind as we journey through today's episode. First thing I want to talk about is successful businesses deliver exceptional service throughout the whole customer journey. Think about a business that has kind of lost their way and ended up basically shutting shop because they kind of lost their way. They didn't adapt. Their circumstances of how they did business changed as technology evolved. I'm talking about Blockbuster and then kind of, how they went from, having the corner of the market to being just completely dead, losing out to Netflix and other streaming platforms. That's just one thing to kind of think about when you're delivering a customer journey. And if you just learn one little thing from me and this podcast, it's this: your brand is worth nothing if you can't uphold a promise through each customer interaction. And your branding had better align to your customer experience, especially if you want to gain longevity and build authentic connections with your people. Can you just stick your branding and, your customer experience in a blender? No. We have to get our lab coat on and make a culture. Like a good sourdough culture, a culture requires patience, feeding, and the right atmosphere. It's not an overnight thing. A good culture is the best way to ensure your company delivers on a brand promise. Why? Because if your staff are sending mixed messages about what your brand stands for, your customers won't connect. And the easiest way to do this is to look at it with an inside-out approach. So today, I'm going to look at 4 things you can do to give you the best chance to kind of, nurture that little sourdough culture. Nurture that culture. Try saying that after a drink. So number 1. Unify your team through your mission. So we talked about this on the Brand Foundations episode, which was episode number 1 of this podcast. Your team need to understand your what, and your why to be able to provide a unified team. And if you provide a vision, which we talked about as well, and I think that might have even been in episode 2. We talked all about vision and mission. If you provide it, your team can pour everything into it and become a really tight-knit little unit. One way to kind of look at that is to do weekly, hands-on meetings where people can throw out, people can know what's going on day to day. You can also find out problems, but obviously also solve those problems and talk about it as a group. You can inform your team what's going on in the bigger picture, those sort of big evolutions of the business, and see how your goals are tracking. You know, are people getting towards doing that thing you set right at the start of that year? Are you moving towards it? Is there some action that needs to be taken at some point by you or by some of your team? Number 2, hire people with your promise in mind. So if you're hiring right from the start, looking for candidates who embody some or all of your values, teaching them how to deliver the brand's promise becomes so much easier, because they're just singing from the same hymn sheet. It's important to not hire someone in a customer facing or a leadership role if they're pulling in a completely different direction. That one's a fairly easy one to see. Number 3, include your team in the really important parts. And so this one is more getting them involved as your strategy evolves. So obviously your brand strategy isn't you don't do it once and then that's it, it's stuck for the next 15, 20 years. It's something that evolves, and getting them involved in planning out your vision and seeing how you're tracking on that one, looking at your values, setting values together is so good. It gives them that ownership, and it makes them invested in the brand to start with, so that they can start working towards these values. And it's gonna really help align your culture together. Number 4, it's take feedback. Now, as a designer and as a brand designer, feedback is the most critical stage of design, in that you can go and do some amazing stuff and what you feel is amazing, but without feedback, this is feedback from peers, it's feedback from customers, it's feedback from your leadership team. You can do all of this stuff, but without it, everything just falls apart. So I always say, encourage your team to give you the feedback. Let them share their thoughts and criticisms openly. So an openness, a humility, and respect start building a really great culture. And feedback is vital to all future plans. It helps to improve systems and end results. These are my 4 tips to start cultivating that brand. So we got number 1, unify your team with your mission. Number 2, hire the right people. And if you're not ready to hire, and I fully get this, having been a solo operator for 6-7 years, I fully understand if you're not ready to hire, that doesn't mean that you can't work with this part. So you also need to be really super confident in your values, understand your vision, and that is something that you need to do too. Number 3, involve your team in the brand's development. Now, if you don't have that team, there's no reason you can't involve family members or people that are invested in learning and helping you along the way. There will still be people that want to help and want to get involved, even if they're not staff members. There'll be people you can bounce ideas off, and I still feel this is a really relevant thing to do. Number 4, encourage feedback that's open, respectful, and accept that sometimes there is a better way to do something. This has turned out to be quite a short episode today, but if you like it, please hit the follow button and share this episode around. And I will catch you all on the next one.